There's hardly anyone who isn't familiar with Brazil. Even if you haven't visited this country, you've likely heard of it, especially because of its football successes. Brazil is a vast country in South America, well known around the globe. Along with Argentina, it's one of the most visited and prominent countries on the continent. Travelers flock here to enjoy affordable food, experience vibrant nightlife, and explore diverse cultures. Two cities in particular embody the essence of Brazil. Despite the country's immense size of 8.5 million square kilometers, most visitors are drawn to these two urban centers. Let's embark on a journey to discover these beautiful cities and gain a better understanding of Brazil. First up, São Paulo has a population of approximately 10 million people. However, if you consider the entire São Paulo metropolitan area, the population rises to around 21.5 million. Not only is it one of South America's largest cities, but it also ranks among the top 5 most populous cities in the world. For context, other cities with even larger populations include Shanghai in China, New Delhi in India, and Tokyo in Japan, which has a staggering 38 million residents. With such a large population, São Paulo offers a wide range of topics for discussion. It includes everything from the most dangerous streets to the hottest parties in Brazil. If you're wondering about its exact location, the city is situated in the easternmost part of the country. Brazil, being an extremely large nation, is divided into states, similar to the United States. São Paulo is the capital of São Paulo State. It serves as the heart of finance, trade, and industry in South America. The state even has its own flag. Although the city itself is not directly on the coast, it is very close to the sea. While it may not be as famous as Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo is one of the most talked about cities in Brazil, second only to Rio. From an aerial view, the city is truly impressive, featuring rivers that run through it and many high-rise office buildings. Traffic can be quite busy, especially during midday, as people are constantly on the move. The city's architecture resembles both Spanish and Portuguese styles. São Paulo enjoys warm weather year-round, which is why it's common to see people dressed casually in the city's squares. This is perfectly normal. Brazil doesn't place any restrictions on movement in this regard, allowing them to stroll freely through the streets. The city is always filled with music and dancing. Even when the weather is overcast, São Paulo residents refuse to let it dampen their spirits. While the country's economy might not be thriving, the people in São Paulo continue to find joy in life. Regardless of the weather, you'll see people engaged in various activities, always in search of a good time. If you visit alone and have some money, you can easily make friends in these vibrant spaces. In São Paulo, the mindset is generally relaxed, and residents prioritize their own pleasures. People exude high self-esteem and are at peace with their bodies. Observing the faces of Brazilians, you'll notice that many have lighter complexions. This is largely due to significant immigration from Europe, particularly from Italians, Portuguese, and Spaniards, which has heavily influenced the genetic makeup of the population. As a result, we can say that Brazilians often bear a striking resemblance to individuals from Europe. The streets of this city are superbly clean, and despite the crowds, it is not solely focused on football. It truly exudes life. The walls of the buildings are adorned with graffiti, often featuring messages that protest the high cost of living. The locals dislike staying indoors and fill the streets well into the night. Particularly when São Paulo's team plays, you can find tens of thousands of Brazilians gathered in local venues to watch the game. The average monthly income for people in São Paulo ranges between $1,000 and $2,000. If you're considering moving to Brazil to make money, even a large city like São Paulo might leave you disappointed. In contrast, rents in the city can reach around 5,000 Brazilian reais, roughly equivalent to $1,000. Due to these housing conditions, it is often immigrants from Europe and the United States who find residence here. Additionally, because of the low purchasing power in Brazil, visitors from countries like the United States can enjoy luxuries in São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro that are not accessible to the local population. Fortunately, state hospitals in the country offer free healthcare for those with permanent residency, which is a significant benefit, especially considering the high cost of healthcare services in many other countries. Additionally, it's worth noting that in Brazil, there is a strong preference for red meat. The asado craze in Argentina has its counterparts here, and despite the cost of living, Brazilians' love for red meat remains unwavering. However, English is not widely spoken, so in major Brazilian cities, learning Portuguese is essential. One of the most enjoyable aspects of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro is the warm, friendly, and honest demeanor of most people you will encounter. Although the economy may not be thriving, the general attitude of locals toward foreigners is largely positive. To better understand the cities, it's important to acknowledge their drawbacks. Brazil's economy and average monthly salaries are not particularly impressive, and São Paulo feels the impact of these economic challenges significantly. The country's minimum monthly wage is around $260, and the unemployment rate has risen to approximately 7.9% as of first quarter of 2024. I should mention that in cities like São Paulo, people face high taxes, resulting in limited purchasing power. For instance, the iPhone 16 Pro Max, which costs $1,399 in the United States, is sold for over $2,220 in Brazil due to these taxes. In fact, Brazil is the most expensive country in the world to purchase this phone. Consequently, when you visit São Paulo, you'll see many favelas and homeless people on the streets, as the city is home to some of the largest favela neighborhoods. One of the most well-known is Heliopolis. People living in Heliopolis often face discrimination during job interviews. This bias against residents of such neighborhoods is prevalent not only internationally but also within Brazil. Many consider areas like Heliopolis to be dangerous, and thus it's often advised not to enter them. If you take a closer look at these neighborhoods, you will see numerous tangled cables throughout the favelas. In many of Brazil's shantytowns, nights can be pitch black. However, in Heliopolis, the streets are illuminated with LED lights come evening. This improvement is thanks to the determined efforts of the women in the community, who have successfully installed streetlights to increase safety and visibility at night. Residents of these favelas in São Paulo often rely on illegal electricity connections, tapping into national grids through a complex network of underground dealings, typically controlled by various gangs. These neighborhoods receive minimal support from the government and are chronically underfunded. As a result, people often find themselves in desperate situations, and when faced with limited options, may unfortunately fall under the influence of local gangs. The favelas are usually made up of two-story structures that lack the paint often seen in more prosperous areas. The exposed bricks are visible on the outside, and the roads are frequently neglected, lined with aging vehicles. The sanitation systems are usually basic, and some areas are characterized by unpleasant odors. However, the most uplifting aspect of these neighborhoods is the hopeful, smiling faces of the residents, particularly the children, who hold tightly to their dreams. Many kids aspire to become world-class football stars in a country where the passion for football runs deep. This is not merely a fantasy for them, as both Argentina and Brazil have numerous examples of individuals who rose from these shantytowns to achieve fame as some of the world's greatest footballers. One beautiful aspect about the neighborhood is that everyone looks out for each other. The community is tightly knit and ready to unite against any external interference. Not too long ago, around 30 years ago, very few people lived in such neighborhoods. They were overlooked, remote areas where only a handful of families struggled to survive away from the city. Today, in the shantytowns of São Paulo alone, more than 200,000 people reside. These neighborhoods rank among the most underdeveloped parts of the city, lacking adequate infrastructure. Over the past 3 decades, many people have migrated from rural areas of Brazil to cities like São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, hoping to find work. Their intentions were genuine. They sought a better quality of life and stable jobs to support their families in these major cities. However, living in these metropolitan areas has proven challenging, as many migrants cannot afford the rent. Rather than completely abandoning the city, they settled in vacant lands on hilly terrains, constructing self-built shanty houses and gradually transforming these areas into large neighborhoods. Had they not migrated to these major cities, they might have faced life in rural Brazil, where livelihood challenges are even more severe. Some families there are figuratively in dire straits, akin to those in certain parts of Africa. If you decide to visit the shantytowns in various cities today, including São Paulo, you will find marginalized and dangerous areas. Many visitors to Brazil tend to avoid these neighborhoods due to their negative reputation. If you enter these areas as a foreigner, you will likely attract curious glances, as locals are not accustomed to seeing outsiders and will want to know your purpose for being there. It's worth noting that the term favela simply means a large community to the locals. Residents of the favelas are aware of their challenging living conditions and are not typically keen on having outsiders film or document their lives for the world to see. Many families face such dire poverty that some send their children into long-term adoption programs in developed European countries, including Italy, in hopes that they will have a better future. The true heartbeat of Brazil is found in Rio de Janeiro, the country's second-largest city after São Paulo. Rio de Janeiro is also the capital of its own state, with a population of 6.2 million people. What distinguishes Rio from São Paulo is its direct access to the sea. Residents don't have to travel by car from the city center to reach the beach on weekends. To travel between the two cities in Brazil, it takes about 6 hours by car or 1 hour by plane. Although they may appear close on a map, Brazil is a much larger country than one might think, and the distance between the two cities is approximately 500 kilometers. If you have the opportunity to visit only one of these two cities, it makes more sense to choose Rio de Janeiro. This city is known for its vibrant entertainment sector and warm-hearted people. Leblon Beach, in particular, is one of the busiest spots in the country. No matter how far you walk along the beach, the crowds never seem to diminish. Interestingly, people typically come to the beach not for swimming, but for sunbathing and socializing with friends. As a result, you will often see adults playing games or simply gazing at the sea on the sandy shores. I don't know which country you're from or what culture you're accustomed to, but if you're visiting the beaches in Rio de Janeiro, be prepared to see more nudity than usual. Brazilian women enjoy being glamorous and revealing, and they take this to another level at the beaches. You'll find women of almost all ages embracing this style. This may either appeal to you or make you feel uncomfortable. If you're visiting those areas as a couple, be ready for possible jealousy issues. Of course, the city is not just about its beaches. For example, there's an area called Sugarloaf Mountain, where you can enjoy stunning views of Rio de Janeiro from above. If you're not afraid of heights, you can take a cable car ride to an even higher vantage point and appreciate the city laid out before you. Additionally, Rio is home to one of the 7 wonders of the world, closely associated with Brazil: the iconic Christ the Redeemer statue, which stands proudly in the city. Every year in February or March, the world-famous Rio Carnival takes place in Rio de Janeiro, a celebration that is synonymous with the city's identity. This event is one of Brazil's largest festivities and is known as the biggest festival in the world. People from all corners of the globe flock to Brazil to experience this vibrant carnival, where samba dance performances come to life. This brings us to the end of the video. See you in the next one. Goodbye.